Hi, Art and Lori. It's Chris Burns from Reflection Pools. I thought I'd put together a little timeline for your pool project that would we could use as a guide, but also to give you yourself a guide as to what's going to happen when, or at least we hope anyway. Um, we've got it broken down into four different sections here: the actual pool structure, and then the deck and equipment pad. So basically the concrete work, and then installing the equipment, and then finishing up with the liner. So we'll just walk our way through this, and if you have any questions, please let me know. I'll be glad to answer anything I can. Let's start off with the dig. We're hoping that Glenn's going to be in there tomorrow. Owen, he knows it's going to be this week, so we're hoping tomorrow or Tuesday. Normally a dig would only take about a day and a half. But in your case, I think there's an accessibility issue, and Glenn's going to be using a smaller Bobcat. So Owen figured it was probably going to take him about 3 days to do the dig. So I put 4 days in here just to be on the safe side. When we get to the final point or the final stages of the dig, we're going to call for the initial geotech inspection. They like to do that before the steel structure goes in place, in case they have any concerns at all with what they might see after the dig is performed. So we'll get that done hopefully on Thursday. On the same day, we're going to have the steel delivered, so that Friday morning we should be able to go ahead and start putting the structure together. Now, putting the steel together takes 1 to 2 days. I've allowed 3 days in here for it, which I think is more than enough. What they do at this point is assemble all the walls, and also do all the plumbing for the bottom drains of the pool. Everything that's going to be inaccessible once the concrete gets poured in the bottom of the pool. So we should have that done. I'm thinking by Tuesday. That should be lots of time for that. Now, during that time, we're going to call for the City of Kelowna for the siting inspection. The city does 2 inspections. The first one's called a siting inspection. Basically what that is they want to make sure that the pool is on your property and isn't infringing any covenants or anything else that's on the property. And they like to do this obviously before we pour any concrete, because then it gets a little hard to move if need be. So we'll do the siting inspection. We'll schedule it for the 14th and get that out of our hair, and then schedule for concrete the following day. Now, this is the initial concrete coming in for the pool bottom and the footings outside the edge of the walls. You'll notice that when the walls go up, they seem really flimsy, and sometimes you think, how are they strong enough to hold water? But when all the outer bracing and everything are on them, and then the concrete gets poured all the way around the outside edge of the walls, they just solidify. They just get rock solid. And that's the reason why we have to make sure that the walls are positioned. We have a laser leveler that is good to like 1 millimeter tolerance. And we make sure that everything is absolutely square and level before we bring in any concrete. So there's going to be 2 applications of concrete. One is the outside footings, and the other one is the bottom of the pool. So the bottom of the pool at this time will be all shaped. So it'll be shaped exactly to the contour of what the final product will be. And we'll have concrete poured in there, and and he's in there for quite a few hours. That takes the better part of a day to do that, because as you can imagine, to trowel out the whole bottom of the pool from one end to the other is quite a job. So once the pool bottom and the footings are in place. Oh, one thing here I just want to mention here. I put "and steps" in with question marks. Now, your steps are filled with concrete. Now, that's usually done after. That's usually done at the same time that they're doing the deck work down here. But what Owen wants to do, he wants to try and see if he can have them done at the same time. Now, the reason for this is very simple, and it comes down to this liner issue that we're facing right now. The liner, as you'll see in a minute here, is kind of the holdup for everything in the pool construction. So we cannot measure for the liner until the steps are filled and the concrete is all done and set in there. So Owen is trying to do that ahead of time with the pool bottom, if at all possible. If not, well, we're going to do it very shortly afterwards, somewhere in this area here. But we're going to try and do it back here if possible. That way, there should be no problem getting in and measuring the liner, hopefully a week earlier, than what we would normally have to do. So, anyways, we'll move down here to the rough plumbing. Now, this rough plumbing isn't the bottom drains have already been done. This is the plumbing that goes from the pool all the way back to your equipment pad. So they'll finish all that up, and once that's done, then everything can be backfilled. Now, once the backfill is done, you're left with this shiny structure in the ground and nice level land all the way around it. So it's starting to look like something at this point. After the backfill, we're going to install the auto cover pit, and that is done at one end of the pool, and it's sunk into the ground. That's where the auto cover rolls up, and there's a motor in there, and that's where it stores the auto cover. So we sometimes call it the pre-pour kit, and that has to be done before we get into any of this deck work here. At the same time we're doing the pit, we're going to install the liner track. The liner track is installed all the way around the perimeter of the pool, right at the top of the steel structure, the top of the walls. And that's the track that your liner actually locks into when it comes time to install the liner. So now that all of this is done, we're ready to measure for the liner. Now, you'll notice I got a day gap in here, and the reason for that is I'm hoping we can get it done on the Tuesday, but normally the fellow who does the liner measurements only does them on Wednesdays. Now, we're really hoping he's going to make an exception here if we're ready a little before that, just because of the situation. These liners, normally the liners take 2 to 3 weeks. If we rush them, they're usually here in less than 2 weeks. But what's happening now is I think a lot of the pool people across the country are realizing that, we're waiting 3, 4, 4.5 weeks sometime for a liner. And it's because Latham right now is running on part staff due to their social distancing in their factory, and their production has slowed right down. So if we rush the liner, I'm just crossing my fingers that rushing the liner isn't going to be a futile effort, because if everybody in the country rushes them, then we're no better off than where we started. Anyways, let's move on to the deck and equipment pad. So last thing about the liner here, this begins the clock. So once he measures it here, now I'm really hoping that we're going to see it in 2 weeks. So I've allowed 1-2 weeks here for the liner delivery. So But this is a part we have no control on, and we're just really hoping that things go well here. That's why we want to make sure we get the liner measured ahead of time. Normally, we wouldn't send the guy in to measure the liner until the deck is poured. But you see, that's going to be a whole week difference in there. And so we're hoping on trying to gain a week by having him measure the liner ahead of time. Okay, on to the deck and equipment pad. They'll probably be spending a day prepping for the deck and laying out all their rebar and their forms and everything. While they're doing that, we're going to be installing, now that would be Glenn doing that because he's doing your deck work. While they're doing that, we're going to be installing the modern molding forms. So what those are is a kind of a styrofoam form with a nice shape, a nice rounded shape on it that the concrete can flow up to. We install them on the top of the walls of the pool, and they're kind of a guide so that when they do pour the concrete, we end up with a nice finished face on the pool edge of the concrete deck. So we'll be installing those the same time they're prepping for the deck. Hopefully the very next day we get concrete in there again and pour the deck. Now again here I've I've put on here deck and steps because this is where we normally would do the steps if we were going to wait and measure the liner in this area. So, and this is going back as to the reason why Owen wants to pour the steps way back here, okay, just to try and save some time. So once the deck is poured, there's only one last thing after that in that section, and that's to remove the modern molding forms. That doesn't take very long, just a bunch of broken up styrofoam that we'll be hauling away. And now we're entering that lull period because really all we have to do is install the equipment before the liner arrives. Now installing the equipment only takes a couple of days. I've stretched it out here into 4 days only because there's really going to be nothing else to do in that period anyway. We're in that, as I said, that lull period waiting for the liner to arrive. So we're going to install the equipment. While we're installing it, we're going to call for the final geotech inspection. Now there's a reason for that, and that is because when we get the next week, the City of Kelowna, the final inspection done, there are 3 things that have to be done before they will okay the final inspection. One is they want to get the final geotech report done. Now, once they come and visit your yard and do their inspection, it usually takes a couple of days to prepare the report, so I don't anticipate getting those till probably Thursday. So once I have them, I'd like to be able to forward them to the city inspector on the Friday. And I'd like to be able to advise them on the Friday that, yes, we already have the form, everything's done, and we're good to go. So just so there's no holdups on getting our final approval. Now, there's 2 other things that have to be done before the final inspection, and that is the electrical hookup and the gas hookup to your equipment, because they check that at the same time when they're doing the final inspection. And so these might be different days in here, but we'll be working with the electrical and gas fellas there to make sure they can get in there while we're in there doing the equipment and get that done before the Friday. And the other one, which is very important, and it's just mostly an observation point here, but we have to make sure that your fencing is complete and to code before or by this Friday. This one actually, I should probably move this one back. Let's move this back a day, because this one is deadly important. If the fencing is not done, if your gates are not self-closing, so they have to be on springs and they have to latch by themselves, then they will not give us the final inspection. And you see what happens after the final inspection, where this arrow goes. That's installing the liner. We cannot install the liner and put water in your pool until the final inspection is done. So this is why these items in here are absolutely critical. So I want to get the geotech done. Geotech's not the end of the world because I could always submit it later, but I'd rather get it done ahead of time. The electrical and gas I want to have out of the way, and the fence, when they come on the Friday, I want to have be able to say, yeah, there's the fence, it's finished, and have them do their inspection on it and be good to go. Now, I put this on Friday instead of the Monday because this Monday is the stat holiday in August. So rather than try and delay and move the city up here and push everything back, you can see I'm trying to get your liner in here by this weekend is the goal. So I'd like to get the city up there on the Friday if at all possible. So the following week, hopefully we'll have the liner here on Wednesday. Hey, if we're lucky and the liner comes in a little early, then we'll just shift this, prep the pool bottom. This one here we can actually do the week before if need be. So if we have any, like if we get confirmation of shipping on the liner, maybe in this week here, then we might just do that, prep the pool bottom the week before. Really what that is we take well, for lack of a better description, it's like a grinder, and we're going to grind all the concrete, the bottom of the pool down to make sure there's no little bumps or anything that might stick up that you might feel through your liner. So we grind the whole pool bottom down nice and smooth, and then vacuum it all up at that time. So I'm thinking we probably will do this back in this week here. So when the liner comes, the liner is a 2-day process. The first day they'll have the liner in, and they'll start to fill the pool with water. And what they'll do is they're going to put a vacuum in between the liner and the walls just to draw out any air as it's filling with water. And they'll put a gauge on the water supply. We have a special instrument there that will allow it to fill just below the return jets. So basically what it is, we need the pool about half full to get everything nice and tight with the liner before we put the jets and put the face plates on those and everything else. So the first day the water will probably continue to fill through the night, and it'll shut off by itself when it gets to the appropriate height. Second day, the guys come in and they put the face plates on the return jets. They do what they call cutting them in. So basically what they do now is the return jets are above the water level. They have to cut holes in the liner right where the jets are and put their compression fittings in there with the gaskets and then the faceplate trims on it. And they're going to do that to the skimmer as well. So that'll get done the second day. And once those pieces are in place, then it's a matter of putting the water back on, and the pool will finish filling that night. So once the pool is full, we just have to come in and test the equipment. We'll fire everything up, make sure everything's running good, water's flowing good through all your heater, the pump, filter, and we'll also be installing the auto cover. The auto cover can't be installed until the water is up to the full level. And the reason for that is because when the auto cover is in the closed position, it actually sits on the surface of the water. So if you try and close the auto cover when the water level is too low, you can really stress the auto cover. So that's something to think of. There's that. I think I'm not sure on this, but I think there's some kind of a safety gadget in there that prevents you from closing it if the water's too low. That's why, for example, when we drain the water down over the winter, the auto cover stays in the open position, and then your winter safety cover goes on instead. So the that'll take part of the day. And while they're doing that, we'll come in and get all your accessories set up. You get a big vacuum, a manual type vacuum hose with a big leaf net and all the rest of this stuff. It's a big accessory kit. And at the same time, we'll set up your prowler. That's your robotic cleaner, and make sure that's all set up in its cart, and you get familiar with that. And at that point, we're pretty well done. It's a matter of testing the water, on this day as well. And the only other thing we're going to have to do is install your winter safety cover. Now, that doesn't get done until we do your complimentary closing in the fall. So whenever we close it, whether it's October sometime, whatever time is right for you, we'll come and winterize the pool and install your winter safety cover at the same time. Now, the winter safety cover is a very, very strong cover. It's got about 24 straps. It kind of looks like a spider. And it's got these straps that stretch out, and they're bolted right down to the deck all the way around the pool. And, they're designed, or it's designed so that, if a small child or whatever runs across the top of it, it's going to keep them out of the pool. They'll hold a lot of weight. So they're a very good item rather than just having a, solar blanket or something like that sitting on the pool all winter. So at that point, everything's fairly well done. So I'm not sure if I've really explained this well enough. I'm going to have to go back and listen to this before I send it to you. And but if you have any questions, please let me know. On my time allocations here, I'm trying to be as realistic as I can. I'm allowing a little bit more in some areas, and I'm also, trying to be prepared for the odd little hiccup we might have if we're waiting for something. We shouldn't have any parts delays besides the liner. Because I've got the pool structure, all the steel is set aside already. We've got it reserved, and tomorrow morning, this will be on Monday, the 6th of July. I'm going to be setting aside all your equipment, just in case. I'm just doing that because I'm paranoid. I just want to make sure that everything is there. I just don't want any shortages in the time comes. So I'm going to set aside all the equipment, have our supplier just kind of sit on it, charge us for it, and so that when we do get to this area in here, we know that everything is waiting for us. We can just pick it up and bring it up to your place. So anyway, I don't know if this has helped or not. I hope so. But have a look. Any questions, give me a call or email me, whatever. And have a good day. Thanks very much.